Okay, let's begin with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for this morning, and we invite your presence to our studies and into our hearts and into our minds. We ask, Lord, that the time we spend together will be profitable spiritually and intellectually, and that our characters can be shaped after the divine similitude. And we ask that you can help each of us in our particular needs and struggles. Be with us now through thy Spirit. May you lead and guide us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good morning, everyone. The picture you see here on your screen is in response to a question that somebody asked me, and this is just a thought process that I've been going through. So, trying to answer this person's question. So one of the things we see is that this movement has made a prediction, and this prediction is connected to Samuel Snow's letters, a thing we call the prediction before midnight, which was something that we looked at in 2017, wasn't fully embraced by the movement, but yet it's something that we feel, based upon the evidences, that July 18th is connected to that prediction. So that the prediction we were talking about back first in 2015 and then developing into 2017 into this idea that we were going to predict some event, that prediction before midnight has to be somehow put upon a line. And so somebody asked me a question about it, who had watched the presentation the other day. So this is just a suggested idea that I put forward. So what I have here is Samuel Snow's letters on a line on the top. And I just took one of my old lines of, angel arriving, formalization, empowerment, second angel arriving, formalization, empowerment, and third angel arriving. And I put Samuel Snow's letters in this way. So the way that I understand it is that Samuel Snow's letters themselves typify the Millerite line. And that means from the time when he decides that he's going to be presenting that Christ is coming back in the fall of 1844, not in the spring. It happens at the time of the end. That is, the initial time of the end of Millerites 1843 was December 31st, 1843. And so January 1st, 1844, I guess, is after that time of the end. And that's the time that he decides to present that message. So I thought, well, the first angel for Snow's letters arrives then. And then February 16th, he writes it down. So that would be the formalization of that. February 22nd, it's going to be published. So that would be the empowerment of that. Now, it's republished April 3rd. And we know April 3rd is the false Passover. May 2nd, when his second letter is published, is the true Passover. And April 19th lies in the center of that. And so to me, April 3rd to May 2nd is sort of this waymark that separates these two groups. That is the Protestants from the Millerites. And so I put that really as one waymark in Snow's letters themselves. And then June 22nd is Pentecost letter. Now, we saw before that if we lined up June 22nd with October 13th, and we added a year in 1844, that we would come to July 18th as being 391.5 days away from June 22nd, just as October 13th is 391.5 days away from November 9th. So maybe I should have November 9th under there, except that we line up July 18th with July 18th. So I'm not saying that this line really makes sense. We could put July 18th as part of November 9th and December 25th. Those could all be connected to July 18th as the prediction before midnight. So that is, we could have that 777 days all line up with July 18th, 1844, and some future date as being midnight lining up with July 21st. But this is just how I put it out as a thought. It was just a thought image, a thought idea. And then, of course, you can see I have these dates below there. So April, it says 10/12. That should be 2012. In April 2012 is when Parminder made his prediction about 2014. So he predicted 2014 would be the Sunday law. That was rejected by Jeff. At the time, Tabo lived with me. He had just moved in, and like just that month. And he had these secret communications, the secret study group that he was communicating with, Tabo was, which Parminder ran in Wales. And I wasn't privy to any of what was happening, other than there was a guy on the internet from that group who was promoting that Jesus was coming back, or not Jesus was coming back, that the Sunday law would be in 2014. The guy named Richard Kenny, who's sectioned. He's, what we'd call certifiably insane. So he's a very strange person to talk to, but he was promoting this and knew about this study. Now, of course, Jeff responded to this in May of 2012. Now, I have here October 5th, 2012, lining up with February 16th. Now, this is maybe a little bit mixture of my line. So October 5th is when I first presented in this message in 2012. And so I lined it up with February 16th. And then I have December 21st, 2012, lining up with February 22nd, December 21st, 2012, beginning this line or this structural chiasm with the 2 periods of 777 days at the beginning and the 2 periods of 777 days at the end, with June 22nd at the center. And from October 5th to December 21st is 77 days. So that's why I put it there. But this is just a thought or an idea. And I don't think I ended up sending my papers yet, which I'm going to have to do. I just haven't had the time that I thought I was going to have. So these are just things for your consideration. I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts about what you see in front of you? I mean, I don't think it's really correct. I mean, there's probably lots of problems with it.
Yeah, it doesn't really do anything for me.
Okay. Now, do you have any ideas of what we would do? Would you agree that we line up July 18 and July 18? That is, the idea here is that Snow's letters are typifying the bigger line. That is, and maybe I shouldn't even have, the first angel arrives and all that stuff in there. I should just line up events in our history with events in Snow's letters.
Well, I can see a connection with July 18th.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe December 21st should be the start of that line as sort of the time of the end, being that December 21st, 2012 was supposed to be the end of the world, right? And this is the line of, see, what we're taking here, at least the way that I'm taking this, is I look at Snow's letters as an increase of knowledge in regard to the second angel's message. And maybe we shouldn't have the first angel and the second angel. We should just see this all as the second angel's message. And that in our movement, we had Jeff was in a sense giving the first angel's message, from 1989 to 9/11. And that what we see then happening with this part of our movement, this development of understanding in relation to time, as being a development of the second angel's message in our movement. Would that make sense? So that all of our message is the second angel's message when it comes to the message that's developed after 9/11, that develops into the July 18, 2020 prediction. Would that be more reasonable?
I think it's a better premise.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I just, it was just me thinking, right? So trying to put this on a line, and I just happened to have this blank line, so I decided to use it. But yeah, I think maybe that's a better premise, is that we need to see this all as a development or an increase of light in the second angel's message. And that's going to be Samuel Snow. And particularly his letters are going to be typifying what this movement has been doing in our understanding of Millerite history, particularly in connection with the second angel's message. Now, when we went through all of that, that study of examining the foundation, what we saw is after 9/11, there was this development of understanding regarding 9/11 itself and its change in our understanding of its role, right? So the role of 9/11 changed over time. And when we came to understand that 9/11 was both the empowerment of the first angel, so that's the first thing that had to happen, and then it became the arrival of the second angel. So, and that didn't happen all at once, even though we'd have a hard time now just saying, well, the second angel didn't arrive. I mean, the reason that we put Revelation 8 or Revelation 18 there is really showing that the second angel arrives there. But we also had to recognize that it was the empowerment of the first angel. Now, in that development of the understanding of 9/11, we would then have to say that that must be the second angel's message. Because remember, Jeff, prior to 1989, he's talking about a repeat of Millerite history. And he's still looking at things as being the big line. That is, he's going to look at the Sunday law as what waymark within the repeat of Millerite history is before 1989. Does he have some development or understanding of the first and second angel's message, what it means that they're repeated? Does he have a point in which the second angel's message is repeated prior to 1989? How does he do that? Anybody remember? Or prior to 9/11, I mean. So after 1989, prior to 9/11, I think I said it wrong. So after 1989 becomes August 11th, 1840. So the empowerment of the first angel's message he places at 1989. But prior to 9/11, how does he understand the lines? Where does he put the second angel arriving? Prior to 9/11, where does he do that? Where does he place it? Does nobody remember?
Sorry, I can't remember at all.
Okay. So Jeff is looking for the Sunday law. And the Sunday law is going to be Revelation 18, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's going to be looking at the Sunday law as the arrival of the second angel's message. That it's going to join the third angel and that it will swell into a loud cry. And that will lead to the close of probation. That's how he understands it before 9/11. But after 9/11, he's going to move the empowerment of the first angel to 9/11, And then he's also going to move the arrival of the second angel to 9/11. So he's going to have that 9/11 hold two waymarks for Millerite history, August 11th, 1840, and April 19th, 1844. So the second angel is the fourth angel, right? So the fourth angel, the angel of Revelation 18, is going to be that second angel of Millerite history. But initially, he's still going to hold that for a while to the Sunday law, but then he's going to move it back to 9/11. Now, now we didn't really fully study that, but does anybody know how he first looked at that just before he moved the waymark to April 19th? So where did he have the arrival of the second angel, for instance, in Millerite history, prior to our understanding that it was April 19th? So where did he place the arrival of the second angel?
In June 1842.
So June 1842, right? So that was the arrival of the second angel initially. Now, we're so used to the idea, and here I'm just going to get this off the screen. I'm going to go to the whiteboard here. And so let's go here. So we're going to see this changing line. So initially he's going to have 1989. He's looking for the Sunday law, and that's going to be Revelation 18. And then there's going to be the close of probation and obviously the loud cry. So this would then be early on. This is the Sunday law. So he was here in between 1989 and the Sunday law. But then he's going to, and he's then going to do it, well, this way. This isn't really maybe the best way. But he's going to have this line with 9/11. So you're going to have, don't just put here time at the end. You're going to have 9/11. And over here, we'll put the Sunday law. So 9/11 then is in this line. So this is the line that he had for a while, time of the end, 9/11, the Sunday law. After 9/11, he developed this. And so you can see he had this one, then he had this one. So he's lining up the Sunday law with the close of probation. So 9/11 is the arrival or the empowerment of the first angel. But then he's going to bring what we would call the second angel. He's going to bring it here. So this is going to be the empowerment of the first angel and the arrival of the second angel. Now, the reason why he did that in Millerite history is he came to understand that there was before they believed that they were giving the midnight cry. So his initial idea is that there was, in a sense, two midnight cries in Millerite history. So in Millerite history, if we're going to take Millerite history here, you're going to have 1798. You're going to have this arrival of the second angel. But before the second angel arrives, they believe that they're giving the midnight cry. Now, it's kind of obscure in here because we know we have August 11th, 1840. And then we have this arrival of the second angel and the empowerment and so forth. So you're going to have midnight and the midnight cry. But Jeff doesn't really initially understand this history that well. And they're going to talk about the seven thunders. But he's going to recognize that there is what they believe is a midnight cry that happens under the first angel. And then under the second angel, there's going to be the true midnight cry. And so he initially had this idea that there would be midnight cry Sunday law sort of thing, but not described in that way, but this history of the loud cry, that somehow it was repeated. But that's going to end up happening here. So you're going to have midnight and the midnight cry and the Sunday law. So this midnight cry and midnight came to be understood from 2013 into 2016. I mean, really, the midnight cry waymark was nailed down in 2014, but at least it was being discussed in 2013. If you watch Habakkuk's tables from 2012, you don't see any of this in this waymark. You're going to see his earlier understanding, which is going to be more this line. Now, they do kind of move 9/11 and this history of the midnight cry or Millerite history and the Sunday law. But sometimes you'll see it 9/11, the Sunday law, the close of probation. So at different times, he has three waymarks. In 2016, we end up with this, and that's going to parallel Millerite history from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the seventh month. So it's not till 2016 that we get this understanding. So that we have all of those waymarks. Now, remember, I'm proposing that part of the problem is that we didn't understand what lines we were looking at. That is, we started to talk about priests, Levites, and Nethinim. But we could see that in this history, there's Samuel Snow's letters. And Samuel Snow's letters comprise this development of the second angel's message. And if we put 9/11 here, then we can see that 9/11 lines up with August 11th, 1840. But we have this waymark here, which we also call 9/11, because it lines up with the first day of the first month. And then we have midnight cry, and the Sunday law. Now this history here then is the repeat of Millerite history, the first angel's message, the second angel's message. So we can see that there's the first angel's message that still is being proclaimed after 9/11, which would compare to August 11th, 1840. So Jeff has not really moved to the second angel's message just because 9/11 occurred. The 9/11 serves these two purposes. So after 9/11, we have a development of the second angel's message, which is this movement's history. So I would call this FFA, right? So I've gone through this before at different times. And we would have to say that this is July 18th, and this is July 18th. So that somehow this history of FFA relates to Snow's letters as a development of the second angel's message. Prior to these waymarks, midnight and the midnight cry. But midnight and the midnight cry, none of this really is on the big line. This is a repeat of history to get to the waymark of the Sunday law that is on the big line. That is, all of this I'm proposing is part of the Sunday law history. And that at 9/11, we see that this is the Sunday law waymark because we see the angel of Revelation 18 come down at 9/11. So we can say that all of this history then has to be the Sunday law. But that means that this history is typical, just like Snow's letters are. So I'm arguing that Snow's letters are a type of this bigger line, and that this history here must be a type of this line. That is, we're typifying this whole Sunday law structure in some part of our history, which has to do with an increase of light in regard to the second angel's message. So that's what I'm proposing. How I would do this, how I would take the different dates of our history and line them up with Snow's letters. There's various ways to do that. But we know then that midnight and midnight cry are still future after July 11th. And I still take July 11th to December 25th, 2021 as part of the same history.
You're saying July 11th?
July 18th. July 18th to December 25th, 2021. That's part of that waymark that we call the prediction before midnight. In a sense, all of this is the prediction before midnight, our whole line. And I'm taking it from December 21st, 2012, which has this structural chiasm, where what's introduced is now a chronology that's related to time. Now, there's this concern that we're time setters within this movement. That is, there are people within this movement who actually accept the premise of the December 6th, 2020 declaration, but they still stay in this movement. They still believe that all of this chronology and the things that we're doing are some kind of a deception. But we can see that God gave us this time as some kind of a witness. And this is related to the 2520. That is, we can't separate July 18th and the coming date, December 25th, from the structure and the understanding and light that comes from the 2520. It's all part of it. And it's for us to come to understand, to reconcile, or to come to terms with what this time setting has been about. And I've argued that we in a sense shouldn't have been time setting, but it was in God's providence that we did, because God gave it to us. The problem was in our interpretation of what was happening. And God was giving us lots of evidence that we couldn't make a prediction about external events. But the movement ignored that. But again, that's still in God's providence. There was a purpose in it to teach us something, just as it was with the Millerites with October 22nd, 1844. And that's the second angel's message. That's Samuel Snow. And this means FFA in making this prediction is Samuel Snow. But we often place Samuel Snow here and here. But this is not an increase of light. His letters are. This is just that light coming into public knowledge. That is, it's going to affect then the Millerites in a big way. And this would be the case here. Right now we have this increase of light, but it hasn't impacted the Levites in a big way. Adventists have not come to accept this. We believe that a time will come when all of this light that we've had on the scriptures, upon the prophecies, upon Millerite history, will then be understood, and that will lead to the Sunday law. Is any of that unreasonable? Anybody have problems with that? Anybody have any observations? Does anybody agree with it? Okay, well, I don't know if anybody agrees. I hope somebody does. Okay, we're gonna look a bit more at some of these details in our history. Now, some of it I don't want to go into, it's just because it would take too long. But when we look at this chart, just a brief explanation. We can see here from July 27th, 1449, that we have on, and I'm just going to look down here at these different calendars. We have the Mayan calendar. The date is 11/11/871. And then 300 and 144,000 days later, let's just do it that way. It's 394.2583 years. It's going to bring us to this date, 12/11/871. So that is 144,000 days later. It's just that first digit in the Mayan date represents 144,000 days. Now, you'll see that we have an Islamic date here, July 27th, 1449. That's the 27th day of the 5th month in the 863rd year of the Hijra. So that's the Islamic calendar date, how you would write it. And then above that, we have the Gregorian date, well, July 27, 1449, with the biblical date of the 26th day of the 4th month underneath it. Now, the Julian date I didn't write there, but it's July 18th. So the 26th day of the 4th month in 1449 is July 18th on the Julian calendar, but July 27th on the Gregorian. And then I have these periods, 12 of these periods, and each of these periods is 1,190 days and 20 hours, it says. Now it's actually 1,190 days and 19 hours and 50 minutes. So if I was going to change this, I would change this. A simple way to look at it would be 1,190 minutes, because 19 hours and 50 minutes is 1,190 hours, or minutes, I mean. So if I went here, I could just go 1190 minutes. So there's something precise about the period of time between a solar year, actually 32 years and 7 months on the Gregorian calendar, and 32 years and 7 months on the Islamic calendar. That is 12 periods. What this whole period is, the 391 years, is 12 periods of 32 years and 7 months. Or 33 years and 7 months if you're using the Islamic calendar. That is, in a period of 391 years, the Islamic calendar will have an additional 12 years added. And you can see that in that if you counted the number of years from 1449 to 1840, you know it's 391 years. But if you count from 863 AH to the same date, the 27th day of the 5th month in the year 1264 AH, that you will have covered 403 Islamic years. So that's exactly 12 years more than the Gregorian calendar. So you age more quickly if you're Islamic. Well, not really, because they both represent the same number of days. It's just their years are shorter. Their years are 354 days, 354.37 days is a year on the Islamic calendar, where ours is 365 and a quarter, right?
The 403 years, 863 plus 403 is 1266, not 64.
Okay. Yes, so why is that? Did I make a typo? Or did I do something? Here, just let me check. Okay. I'll just check quickly. Yes, I know. I see what you mean. So if I'm going to go, I'm just going to my calendar calculator here. So I might have made a typo there. And yeah, okay, I did a typo. So it shouldn't be 50, it should be 56. So I don't know how I got 64 there. Thanks, Stephen.
Should it not be 66?
Okay, 60, 56. Oh, this is supposed to be 53. There we go. Yeah, so bad typos on my part. Yeah, so it's supposed to be, yeah, so somehow I don't know how I did that, whether it was just bad typing or whether I made a mental mistake, but it's, yeah, so it's 853, so that's corrected, and 1256. So it's 403 years Islamic. So thank you for correcting that. I still have the correct date as far as being the 27th day of the 5th month. Okay, so now, of course, you can see that this is quite interesting, that we have this number 12. Now, of course, there's 12 months in a year. And these periods of 11,900 days are a period of 403 lunar months or 391 Gregorian months. That is, if you take 12 years, or not 12 years, 32 years, and you multiply it by 12, and then you add 7, you will get you'll get 391. And if you take 33 years times 12 and add 7, you'll get 403. So of course, that's why this being divided by 12 works out in this way. Now, the thing that's interesting is if we take a period of 144,000 days, it's 1,190 days longer than 391 years. That is, the difference of days between 142,810 and 144,000 is 1,190. So this representation of this 144,000 days is a representation of 12,000 times 12, correct?
Yeah.
Right. But this representation of 391 years is a representation of 11.9 times 11,900. That is, if I take 11,900 days, and the period of time precisely is 11,900 days and 1,190 minutes. That is, that's how long it is between this period of time here, each of these 12 periods of time. So if I have 11,900 days and 1,190 minutes, and I multiply that by 12, or not by 12, by 11.9. So instead of multiplying it by 12, I multiply it by 11.9, and then I add, and I have the calculation here. So I'm going to go there. At least I'll read it. It's in an email. So that is, if I take 11,900 days, so I'm going to just do this here. I copy this. I'm going to put it in this document. That's not going to work. Oh, just move this document down like that. So you can see this now. What it says is if I take 11,900 days and I add 1,190 minutes, that's the period of time between the cycle where the solar year and the Islamic year line up. And I multiply it by 11.9. That is, I'm not going to multiply it by 12 this time. I'm just going to multiply it by 11.9. And then I'm going to add 1,190 days. I will get 142,809 days, 20 hours, and 1 minute, or 403 Islamic years of 354.3668 days, which is approximately 391 solar years. 391 solar years is 142,809, not an 819. 809 days, 16 hours, 42 minutes, and 6 seconds. So you can see that there's a slight difference between these, which is roughly 3 hours difference, 3 hours and a bit. Okay. Now, if I take, and I got this spelt wrong, synodic months. So 391 years of actual months, that is, the month length is 29.530587 days. That's how long a month is at present. It used to be 29.530594 days in length. So slightly longer in the time of Christ and in BC. So the month is getting shorter. But if I take 48,036 or 4,836 of those, so 4,836 months, which is the number of months I would have in 391 years, it's 142,809 days, 22 hours and 3 minutes. And this is the period of time here that we're taking as, if you multiply that, or if you divide it, I guess, you get 11,900 days, 19 hours and 50 minutes, and 10 seconds. Right? So it's within the minute, it's like 10 seconds off from precision, which is, of course, works within, and it's not every. Okay. Does this make sense to people, what I've just done here? That I've shown something about this period of 391 years, that it's not some arbitrary period of time, and it's attached to this symbol of 11.9.
The 32 years and 7 months is like March 27.
Okay, yes. So, which has been pointed out before. So 32 years and 7 months has the same numbers as March 27th. But it would be, just the 3 is by itself, and the 2 would have to be added to the 7. But 327. So that'd be March 27th, not the symbol 273, 27th of the 3rd month. But people can see that, right? So there's something about these symbols. We have the 11.9 symbol. An 11.9 can represent both November 9th and September 11th. Correct?
Yes.
Now we have this symbol attached to Islam, right? So this was one of the reasons when we were looking at November 9th that we were saying that must be Islam. But Tess actually didn't really attach Islam to it, which was one of the things she didn't do. She was more concerned about Russia and the United States. But be that as it may, initially that we did attach Islam to it, but that just got pushed to the side. So Islam moved over to July 18th, not for Tess and Parminder, but for this movement. But of course, Islam wasn't involved in some actual event on July 18th, though they may have been planning an attack. We just can't prove that. We don't have evidence of that. Now, what I want to do, though, is look at this calculation. So we're going to look at what happens here at the end. So Stephen had looked at 180 years. And we looked at the symbol then of the 26th day of the fourth month. 180 years later is 2020. And the 26th day of the fourth month happened to be July 18, 2020. But we already had July 18, 2020 from the prophecy of Ezekiel, though it was a Julian date, which would be July 31st. And it was attached to the symbol of the 10th day of the fifth month. But when I was looking at this Mayan calendar, what I was trying to understand is, could I produce July 18 in some other fashion? Whoops. So in order to look at this, I'm actually going to go to the next slide because that one has the better detail. So what I did is I looked at the Bektum, the 144,000 days. And the first thing I noticed is that it was 1,190 days longer than 391 years. So that means it's going to be, 3.2583 years longer, because if you take 1,190 days, it produces 3 years and about 3 months, right? So it's a little bit longer. And so that date, if I count from the same starting point as I count the 391 years, I arrive at October 30th, 1843. Now, October 30th, 1843 is not a significant date as far as I can tell. So I don't know of any event that happened on October 30th, 1843. It's not the Day of Atonement or anything like that, because that's going to happen in September. But anyway, it's a date. It's a date where 144,000 days ends. Now, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these, and you'll see in a minute if I can remember what I actually did, all the details of it. So what I did is I took 142,810 days, so that's just rounded up by a couple of hours. I multiplied it by 12 and then by 5, or divided it by 12, pardon me, and then by 5. So that's basically taking a 0.5. That is, I'm taking these periods, there's 12 of them, of 11,900 days with 1,190 minutes, but I'm just going to take that as, rounded up, basically. I'm going to multiply it by 5. After I've divided that bigger period of 391 years by 12, and then I multiply it by 5, and I'm going to add it to that period of, instead of 11,900 days, 1,190 days. So that's why you see 148,210 divided by 10, multiplied by 12, or divided by 12 and multiplied by 5. So I know it looks a little bit confusing, but I'm just taking this smaller period, which is the period of difference between the Mayan calendar, 144,000 days, and that period of 391 years. And I'm multiplying it by 5, and then I'm adding those two numbers together, and I get a period of 65,454 days. And then I counted from July 27th, 1840, and I come to October 11th, 2019. Now, October 11th, 2019 was the day before I made this calculation. That is, I make this calculation on October 10th, 2019. And October 10th, 2019 is what symbol? What is October 10th as a symbol?
10th day of the 10th month.
It's the 10th day of the 10th month. And that's the siege, right? That's the siege of Jerusalem in 587. And I'd actually made a prediction regarding October 10th, 2019, back in May of 2019, using the dark day. So I'm not going to go into that study. But the idea is that I believed October 10th was significant and that it's an increase of light. That is, if you look in Ezekiel chapter 10, let's go there. So I'm trying to bring you slowly through this information, and I know it's a lot, and I don't expect you to remember all the numbers, and it is in some of my papers. So, but when we go to Ezekiel, I mean, we know it's the date of the siege, but it's more than that. Now, this is in the 9th year, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that he is told to write the name of that day because the siege has begun. And that's what he's been predicting specifically, is the start of the siege. Now, remember that there's going to be a bunch of things that happens. So one of the things is Ezekiel's wife is going to die. Now, why does she die? Anybody remember why Ezekiel's wife dies?
Is she symbolic of the church?
Okay, well, she's definitely symbolic of the church. In this case, the temple, right?
Okay.
Because remember, it says here in verse 21, speak unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will profane my sanctuary, the excellency of your strength. In Hebrew, that's exactly the same thing that's from Leviticus 26. In the first 7 times, the pride of your power. It's identical. So it's exactly the same phrase. So I'll profane my sanctuary, the pride of your power, the desire of your eyes, and that which your soul pitieth, and your sons and your daughters whom you have left shall fall by the sword. Now this is a command not to mourn. So he's not supposed to mourn the death of his wife. And when people ask him this, he's proclaiming the destruction of the sanctuary. So his wife represents the sanctuary, which is the church, correct?
Well, yeah,
Okay,
sort of.
right. And this is going to be a sign, right? Thus Ezekiel is unto you a sign. So Ezekiel himself is a sign, which we see a lot in Ezekiel. He becomes a type. And then it says another prophecy is given. So there's 2 prophecies, one regarding his wife, and the other is regarding the escapee. And it says that he's going to be mute, right? He says, in the day that thy mouth shall be open. So he's not going to be able to speak until somebody who has escaped from the siege tells him of it, who has seen it with his own eyes. And Ezekiel then is going to hear it with his own ears. And so he's going to be mute until the escapee comes. And that's going to be 6 months after the walls are broken down, 5 months after the temple is destroyed, because it's going to be on the 5th day of the 10th month in the year that the temple is destroyed. And the temple is destroyed on the 10th day of the 5th month. So it's going to be 5 days less than 5 months, I guess, right? Yeah, 5, 10. So yeah, 6 months since the destruction, since the walls were broken down, and 5 months since the temple was destroyed. So he's going to hear this with his ears. right? And then he's not going to be any more dumb. And he's going to start prophesying again. Now, during that time, of course, he's going to be writing prophecies regarding the pagan nations, Edom, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, Tyre, Egypt, right? These different nations. So the 10th day of the 10th month is a message is given to him. That is, prophecies are given to him. So when I look at what I was expecting to happen, is I wasn't expecting the siege of Jerusalem to begin on October 10th. I was expecting an increase of light. And the increase of light I received was about October 11th, the next day. So on the next day was October 11th. So that was interesting. And I first presented it to somebody on October 11th, my nephew. So I gave him this study that showed October 11th. Said, what day is it today? He said, it's October 11th. So that was interesting. Now, then I did another thing is I took 144,000 instead of 142,810, and I made the same calculation. And that instead of giving me the number 65454, it gave me the number 66000. And I'm missing a bracket here. Now, then I counted from the same date, July 27th, 1840, and that brought me to April 9th, 2021. And April 9th, 2021 is March 27th, 2021 on the Julian calendar. And I believe it's the date that's, if I remember correctly, it's 888, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, now the thing that was interesting was the number of days between these two dates. And you can see that I put a date in between there. So from October 11th to April 9th is a period of 546 days. And if you divide 546 by 2, you get 273. And the center date there is July 10th, 2020. Now, it's short of July 18th by 8 days. But what does July 10th, 2020 represent?
Day of Atonement.
Yeah, it represents the Day of Atonement. Now, it's part of our structure, and we're going to look at that. But it's the significant date that's 8 days before July 18th. And the fact that I was that close, but also that I had this symbol of 273 being doubled, to me said that there's something about this. Now, maybe this could have been refined. Maybe I could have spent more time with the calculation. Maybe I could have used the numbers that we just created that, be more precise about it. Maybe there's something I could have done differently. But that's what I did on October 10th. This is the calculation I made. Now, it was kind of funny because actually I'm a little bit dyslexic with numbers, which I know is hard to believe, but I am. And I'd actually looked at the calculation. Instead of being 65454, I read it as 64545. And I'd counted it from October 13th, 1843 to July 18th, 2020. Now, of course, being dyslexic in numbers has helped me quite a bit because I've found puzzles like this sometimes by making these little dyslexic mistakes. But I would say it's actually significant that I'm going to take this 54 and 54 and switch it to 45 and 45 and count from October 30th, 1843. I don't think it's a coincidence that we can do this. So to me, this was a confirmation about July 18th. But remember, it wasn't just about July 18th. This was giving me information that was leading me to understand. It was one of the steps in understanding that July 18th was part of a structure. And it was a structure of failed predictions. So when we looked at that 777 chiasm with June 22nd in the center, starting from the failed prediction of the Mayan calendar, and including the failed prediction of the evangelicals, and including November 9th, which is a failed prediction of people within this movement, then it suggested to me that July 18th was also going to be a failed prediction. But I never took that position other than to say that it could be because of this. That is, I wasn't saying July 18th isn't going to happen. Because to me, the evidence was overwhelming that that date was significant. Now, any questions about this? I know this is rather complicated sort of diagram, but can you see the rationale here that's being used? Or am I out in left field? Is there a logic to this?
You're making the case for logic on this.
Okay. Yeah, that I can take this 0.5 symbol and use it to be 5 of those periods that make up that period of 391 years. Take 5 of those periods and use that as a 0.5. And then take these fractions of these things and add them together and come up with these significant dates. Now, so I'm going to look at some of these. So I'm going to have to do it this way. So July 10th is going to become a significant date. Which chart is this? Okay. Now this one's kind of a big chart, but these are some of the charts that I started to draw as I was looking at our history and putting things on a line. So there's lots of information and we can't address everything. You can see here though, that I'm counting from October 9th, 2016. This is a binding off camp meeting. That is, this camp meeting was a camp meeting I attended in 2016. That was, we had actually been at the School of the Prophets from May through to the end of July. And we were invited back. I spoke again at this camp meeting in Arkansas. Now it happens to be 273 weeks to January 1st, 2022. And there's a number of things about that. It's also the 264th Sabbath since Raphia Panium opened up. So it's got the symbol of 264. So that January 1st, 2022. It's a week after December 7th or December 5th, 2021. So it's that final week, I guess you might call it. So the Raphia Panium opened up December 17th. So here, I'm going to zoom in so people can see this, but I'm just going to have to move from left to right. So we can see Raphia Panium opened up on December 7th, 2016. And there's 77 weeks to the Italian camp meeting in 2018, where Jeff closed the Sabbath. And you can see here I have the Pentecost, the 6th day of the 3rd month, where he opened the Sabbath on June 2nd at the first Italian camp meeting. And then there's 126 days to October 13th, 2018. You can see the 391.5 to November 9th, and the 47 weeks to September 7th, with March 27th as a symbol of the 23rd day, or 27th day of the 3rd month in the center of that. So that's March 27th, 2019. You can see the 7 weeks and 777 days. That 777 days goes from the beginning of that Italian camp meeting in 2018 to July 18th, 2020. And that from that 187 weeks from Raphia Panium being opened up to July 18th, 2020. So most people are not familiar with some of these spans and these charts. They just weren't well promoted, but you can see that there's a lot to this. And probably why they're not promoted is they're rather busy. There's a lot of information in them. And then we can see that period of time here, I call this the period of Raphia from November 9th to July 18th, and Panium from July 18th to December 25th, 2021. And I have some dates in there, May 14th, when it's 18,720 days. That's Stephen's 52nd Mayan birthday. And you can see I divided this 252 days as 187 and 65. I also have it divided as 7, 65, and 180. This would relate to a division having to do with Trump. And you can see the 273 days I have here going back to October 11th, and the 273 is up to April 9th, March 27th, 2021 in the Julian calendar. And that's probably everything. There's this, our period of 777 days. And 186 weeks. So from that Italian camp meeting to January 1st, 2022. So there's lots of different information in here. But as we were beginning to look at Raphia and Panium, and as when I first started to look at July 18th, we just start to notice these spans of time. So now this becomes to me the significant, I'm going to blow this up a bit. Oh, that's too big. Oh, I guess it just goes in between there. Now this is the March 27th, 2020 to July 31st, 2020. That's a period of 126 days. Now, a lot of things happen in this period of time. March 27, 2020 is the beginning of that 100 days of prayer, and we're going to look at that as well. So that the Adventist Church begins 100 days of prayer, and that's going to begin or to end on July 4th, 2020. And it's an inclusive count. So if you go from March 27th here to July 4th here, that's going to be 100 days. And then you're going to have a period of 26 days going to July. So from there, that's going to be more. That's another period of time. Never mind. Because we're going to have a period of 100 days, and then you're going to have from July 4th, you're going to have a period of 187 days going to January 6th. But anyway, so you can see I have this period of 100 days divided as 49 or 50 days, depending on how you count it, to May 15th. And the May 15th date is the day after May 14th. That's basically all it is. But it's a Mayan date, which is 130792. 7 times 9 times 2 is 126. So that's why I put it in there. And we can see here the Mayan date of March 27th Julian or April 4th Gregorian. This is the 2020 date. That's the Mayan date of 130777. And there's 13 days from March 27th to April 9th. So 13 days is how long a period of time? I mean, it's 13 days, but what else is it?
18720 minutes.
Right. So it's 18,720 minutes. So one of the things we know is there's 13 days between July 18th and July 31st, the 26th day of the fourth month and the 10th day of the fifth month. So that's a symbol of July 18th, 2020. And then you can see I have July 4th and July 18th. And in the center of that is July 10th. That is, I can count from July 4th to July 10th, 6 days. I could also call it 7 days. And from July 10th to July 18th is 8 days. So you could say 6 and 8 days, however you wanted to look at it. It's 14 days. But one of the things we noticed, which I don't show here, is that 100 days of prayer it began at the beginning of March 27th. When did it end? 100 days. Because if you counted from March 27th to July 4th, just normally, how many days would it be? You can see sort of the key here, 50 days and 49 days. So 99 days. So the 100 days of prayer began and included all of March 27th, 2020, and all of July 4th, 2020. So if I'm going to count from July 14th to July 18th, how many days is it?
Depending on how you count, it's either 13 or 14.
Right. So, but if I'm counting from the end of July 4th, because I've completed the 100 days of prayer, then I would count 13, because I wouldn't count July 4th. I'd have to count July 5th as the first day, and I would come to the beginning of July 18th, right? So there's 13 days in between July 4th and July 18th. And then from July 18th to July 31st is 13 days, from the beginning of July 18th to the beginning of July 31st. So you can see that it's 126 days. But there's various ways to count it. But we have the symbol of 18720 between July 4th and July 18th. Now, July 10th just kind of lies somewhat in the middle of it, but not exactly. So it's really kind of 6 and 8 if you're not gonna count. Depends how you count. If you're counting from the end of July 4th to the end of July 10th, that would be 7 days. And then from the end of July 10th to the end of July 18th, that would be 8 days. So that'd be that would be 7 days. So that'd be 15 days. So it becomes, or the end of July 10th to the beginning of July 18th. So you could count this as a period, 2 periods of 7 days if you wanted to, or you could count it as a period of 7 and 6, or you could count it as 7 and 8. So there's different ways to count that period of time. But the point is that we have these dates. And as we approached July 18th, we started to notice these various dates. Now I'm going to skip that. I looked at that one before. So I'm going to look at some of these different diagrams. Now, this one became significant. January 14th, 2017. So we know on December 17th, 2016, we came to understand Raphia, at least. Maybe it wasn't completely Paneum, but Raphia. And then on January 14th, Jeff presented Paneum for the first time in Alberta. And that's going to be 1,533 days before March 27th, 2021. Now, there are a number of things about this. One is we have 1,533 weeks from November 9th, 1989 to March 27th, 2019. So this 1533 comes from the 1533 days between August 11th, 1840 and October 22nd, 1844. It's a wonderful manifestation of the power of God. Ellen White compares it to the Israelites coming out of Egypt, which happened in 1533 BC. So this 1533 becomes a symbol. And the shorthand for it is 153. And we've given it to it because of the 153 fishes as a symbol of prophesying again. And why would you prophesy again?
After a disappointment,
You have a disappointment. The 153 fishes, what was the disappointment?
they had been out all night fishing and caught nothing,
Okay, yeah,
and then they caught
153 fish. But also, we know that Jesus had been crucified, right? So the disappointment of them catching fish becomes a parallel to their disappointment with Christ. And so now they're going to go back to work. They're going to prophesy again. Jesus is going to talk to Peter, you know. So there's lots in that story, the 153. We also know it's 153 days from the writing of Samuel Snow's first letter to the publication of his July 18th letter. So that becomes significant as well. But 1,533 days and 153, they're the same symbol, just expressed differently. We also can note that 1335 is another iteration of the same numerals, right? And is the 1335 connected to a prophesying again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It is, right? Because that's the first disappointment. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1335. And then they're going to have a message again after April 19th, which is going to be the second angel's message, the seventh month movement. They're going to have that tarrying time. Now, the one here below is just 15,330 plus 187 days, brings us to August 11th, 1840, if we go from the time the Pope is taken captive. And so it's a symbol of 1533 and July 18th, which is a symbol of from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the seventh month. So the fact that we have from August 11th, 1840 to October 22nd, 1844, 1,533 days, and from April 19th, 1844 to October 22nd, 187 days, you can see that they're represented in this symbolic way from the capture of the Pope to August 11th, 1840. And there's lots of these charts that I have. So the last one I want to look at least, is this. Now, this chart's maybe a little bit busy. It's not the best one, but you're going to see a chiasm in here, which Jeff calls the midnight chiasm, right? The midnight chiasm begins on June 9th, 2018. So that's the camp meeting where he closes the Sabbath. 63 days later is August 11th, 2018. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this better. And then 63 days after that is October 13th at Lambert Church. And from there, we're going to count 391.5 days to November 9th, right? Now, prior to November 9th, 63 days prior, Jeff is going to wake up from his retirement. Now, his retirement, we could mark as March 27th. It's at this time that he's going, just before he starts the camp meeting in the spring, I guess they called it a spring convocation. And he's going to retire on April 8th. but he's going to wake up on September 7th, and he's going to give the last message at Lambert Church. And 63 days before November 9th. And September 7th is a symbol of 63 being 9 times 7. And then 63 days after that is the January 11th, 2020 date. Now, I know I have a much better chart than this, so I'm going to type in what would be the best way to do this. I think 63 weeks. Yeah, here we are. This is a better chart of what I wanted to show you. So if we go back here, we can see these are the dates. March 27th is the center of a chiasm here, ending with September 7th. And then you have these 2 periods of 63 days. And remember, we could take the American way of counting the dates and the Canadian way or the European way of counting the dates. And we produce the one way we produce March 27th, which is number 327. And the other way we produce this date, January 11th, where we count 63 weeks to March 27th. So Jeff made this structure without having this evidence. That is, he never used this. This was, I think Odilio figured out this one, and I figured out this one. And the 63 weeks is 441 days, which is an inversion of 144. And so this became very significant, this structure. Now, this midnight chiasm is about this message. But I think to a large degree, it's about the movement. So what is this midnight chiasm telling us? What is it pointing to? We have this, June 9th, August 11th, October 13th, September 7th, November 9th, January 11th. But what is it pointing us to? Isn't it pointing us to March 27th?
I think we call this the Levitical chiasm.
No, isn't the Levitical chiasm the one with the March 27th?
Okay.
Right, that's the one with the 3 March 27th in it. That's the Levitical.
Right, okay.
So I'm pretty sure he called this the midnight chiasm, but I could be wrong. I mean, but the midnight chiasm points us to the Levitical chiasm. It points us to this other structure because it gives us these 2 March 27th dates, the beginning of the Levitical chiasm, March 27th, 2019, and the end of the Levitical chiasm, March 27th, 2021. So the Levitical chiasm would be the one that has all 3 March 27th dates in it, right? So this is just the diagram of our whole structure. So just a nice abbreviated form of it, of all the periods of 777 days, all 4 periods, with June 22nd, beginning June 23rd in 2017. And it happens to be the 27th day of the 3rd month on the biblical calendar. So it's the one that brings the priest and the Levites together in the way that I look at it. Though there's more to it than that. So ignore that part of it because I don't want to explain that. Now there's a bunch of other structures that ended up showing up in our movement. I'm going to try to find some of them here. This is a simplification of one of the other charts. Okay. This is one where, comparing Protestants and Millerite history and our history, Seventh-day Adventists and Levites. Notice I have a symbol of sunset. Sunset. If July 21st, 1844 is midnight and October 22nd, 1844 is morning, April 19th would be sunset. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and this is a symbol introduced by Chawatu, rejected by Parminder, and thus rejected by Jeff without really understanding Chawatu's position. And then we can see Samuel Snow's letters I have from February 16th to July 18th in Millerite history, and I parallel that with the PBM. So here I call the PBM 2014, but we could even maybe put it back earlier. It's hard to say. And you can see then I have two 9/11s in here. The one with the empowerment of the message, which when it comes to this movement, 9/11 isn't the arrival of the second angel. 9/11 is the empowerment of the first when it comes to the PBM. It is, though, the arrival of the second angel's message in context of the message to the Levites, the second angel's message. So it serves two different purposes with two different lines within our history, what we call priests and Levites. And we would then have to say that the priest line is this line of Samuel Snow in some way, that he represents the line of the priests. His letters is a specific part of that. But we know that Samuel Snow proclaims at midnight in the midnight cry as a person. And that means this movement has a work to do still in the proclamation of a message that's in the future. And then we can see that the line of the Levites ends at the Sunday law, with the third angels being empowered. So this is the repeat of Millerite history. But we can see then that this is the Sunday law waymark. At least since 9/11, you would have to say 9/11 is part of the Sunday law. That it's the arrival of the second angel's message. But that's, of course, not the case for us in some ways when we're looking at our comparison to Millerite history. That is, Snow begins after August 11th and before April 19th, 1844. So we have our line related to 9/11 in two different ways. Our line relates to 9/11 in one way, I guess, and the Levites relate to 9/11 in a different way, because they're not a part of that increase of light, which we are. They just receive the benefit of it. Just more drawings on some of this type of stuff. Okay, so we don't got any time left today. And I'm going to try to tie this all up tomorrow, at least in regards to our lines. And specifically, I want to get to December 25th, 2021, as much as I can. Now, has anybody found this helpful, or has it been confusing?
It's a little confusing for me because I don't understand all of the details on them.
Okay.
But I will review them with Tom, and he probably understands them a lot more than I do.
Okay. Yeah, I know all the dates and numbers are problematic for people because you have to kind of keep them all in your head.
It seems like a good overview, but it's like going through a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, these things we've gone through in other studies. Some of this is new, though. So there's some things I introduced here that I hadn't really shown anybody. But yeah, it's definitely in looking at these. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at these lines and make sense out of them. And like even in this one, it's kind of a little bit confusing because, well, what I've done here is I've taken Millerite history that you see at the top, the Protestants and the Millerites, And then I shrunk that history down at the beginning. So just to look at this chart. And then I have this 4 generations, the falling away, and then the repeat of Millerite history. And you can see when I do the repeat here, that really you must look at 1989 and 9/11 as part of the Sunday law. Because if you're going to look at this as the big line, Ellen White sees all of this. She just doesn't see the detail. And so we are providing the detail as we pass through this history. Any other comments on this? The one thing I would like people to do is to write down questions. Now, because I'm going to try to answer as much as I can tomorrow. But when we get to the weekend, I'm going to be going through some of this again. Mostly, I want to show people the significance of after July 18th and what December 25th means. Because I think its meaning can only be understood how? How do we understand July or December 25th? What is the key to understanding it? What's the key to understanding December 25th? Anybody have suggestions?
Ezra 10.
Okay, Ezra 10. So that's in a general sense, that's what?
Why is that a key?
Well, what does it mean? Because you're being specific, but I mean in a general sense, what is the key to understanding December 25th? And what you've done is you looked at the past, correct?
Of course,
Yeah. So the key to the present and the future
is the past.
is the past.
It has to be.
Yeah, we can't just speculate about things. We need to understand the past. And God's given us these tools to analyze the past.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. The tools are the symbols that he's given us. And these symbols, there's all kinds of them. But time and these numbers are one of the symbols that he's given us. And he's given us numbers from the beginning as symbols. This isn't something this movement dreamed up. Sure, we've come to recognize more of these numbers and these dates and understood them and put them in order. And we've actually passed through the fulfillment of some of these symbols. So now we have a personal knowledge of them. But they're the things that help us to understand the future. Now there's this concern always, people have about time setting. We're not time setters. We observe time, and it's only understood as it passes, but it's understood in relation to understanding the past as well. That is, we couldn't experience what this movement has experienced if we had not followed what God had given us, if we wouldn't have accepted the symbols that he gave us. And those symbols led us to a prediction, July 18th. And July 25th, or December 25th, 2021 is part of that. And if we deny December 25th, 2021, we've denied everything. But it doesn't mean we're looking to make a prediction regarding December 25th. We just know that it's significant and that we can't ignore its significance. and that its purpose and meaning may not be understood before December 25th or even on December 25th. It may be sometime in the future that we fully understand the significance of what this movement has experienced. So again, it's a lot of information, it's a lot of numbers, but we should be able to understand the structure and that it's not some arbitrary thing. Like, I spent a lot of time studying chronology, and in studying chronology on the internet, you're going to run into lots of different views and ideas. People trying to figure out when the 6,000 years ends so they can figure out when Jesus is coming back, or people reapplying the 2520 or the 2300 days, or literal applications of 1260s as days. All
Or the
different kinds of-
2450.
or the 2450. Yeah, so people are going to do all these types of things, jubilee cycles, sabbatical cycles. They're going to look at the sun and the moon and the stars. They're going to make all these kinds of predictions. But they're speculating. That is, they don't understand the past. If they didn't understand the past fulfillment of prophecy, how can you possibly understand the future fulfillment of prophecy? They're just blind men leading the blind. But we have a more sure word of prophecy. We, as Seventh-day Adventists, understand the prophetic periods of the past, and God gave us a key to understand them, and that was the 2520. The 2520 unlocked the prophetic period so that we could see the structure of those periods and their relationship to each other. And so we have the key to the present. But that key plainly told us that we can't predict an event, right? And as Iran says, December 25th and July 18th are part of the same structure, right? You can't separate the two. But it's not the dates themselves that matter. It's the experience of this movement. And so we have to believe that December 25th brings us to something in our experience. And my view plainly would be that people are making choices. They've been making choices. And that people, if they've made their choice and they get to December 25th and they think that all of this is nonsense, then they're gravely mistaken. And they're in grave danger. And the only reason why people take that position, because we've seen it before, has to do with character. It doesn't have to do with intellect. This movement's moving towards a crisis. And a crisis will demonstrate character. It will not develop it. So let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are very thankful once again for the time that we have had to study this morning and the way that you clarify our thoughts and the way that you give us light, even though we don't deserve it. We ask, Lord, for your Spirit to work in us, that we can step into that light and follow where it leads, that we can have light for our feet, and that we cannot fall off the path into the dark, wicked world below. We ask that we can cling to that cord of faith, and that we can continue to grow in Christ. Forgive us for our sins and help us to trust in you for righteousness. We pray this and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.